chin wag with all of you guys, 4 of you watching concurrently. Of course, nobody's going to turn up to hear me reminisce and talk about Michael Schumacher for 30 minutes or less. But you know what? We shall go for it. How are you keeping? Listen, drop me a message in the chat just to let me know that there are people actually in here listening to my ramblings. But I just wanted to reconvene and have a cheeky conversation about F1. It's coming, isn't it? 2024 is coming, and testing will be around the corner very quickly. And with all this front and center of the mind, I have to talk about Michael Schumacher. I've got to talk about business F1 once again, because there's a bit of reviewing and adjusting that needs to be done on some of my takes. What's going on, NASA? I hope you're good, man. This is it feels good to be back, but I'm a bit rusty, so you guys bear with me. New background, new shape up, new way of thinking, new ways and rules of engagement. Leno, what's going on? My ears are right, mate. It's been a chaotic festive period, but I hope you guys can all hear me well. I will go for 30 minutes or less today. Promise. No cap, 29 minutes or less this time. Firstly, I need to talk about Business F1, the journal that published all this nonsense, he says, about Susie Wolf and Toto Quick. What's going on? Good morning, Quick. I hope you're good. Quick Scott. What a great name, by the way. I want to talk about some other sports as well, and some other sports broadcasters / analysts, and some of the nonsense that they've been spouting. Talk about it all. Not least on characterizations of the season that was 2023. Because listen, sometimes you've got to talk to it. You've just got to talk to it. I hope all is good. Merck 2024, fingers crossed. NASA, fingers crossed for some decent bloody racing. I don't want to get overly ambitious and talk about Mercedes having sorted out their design philosophy, having banged out a brand new concept. No more of the zero pod, and again, from ground zero, not just a rinky-dink iteration of sorts. Fingers crossed that they get it right, but who knows, man, at this stage. My crystal ball is as murky as the next person's, NASA. This is the honest truth. And if past is prologue, most recent past is prologue, then who's backing against another Red Bull massacre with bloody Mr. Max Verstappen in that car? Many of whose victories I've been watching in the postseason, trying to analyse. I'm dotting about here, but I will dot about for the next 27 minutes. There's lots to discuss. But NASA, my crystal ball is as murky as the next person's, and I'm too emotionally damaged to invest or to be overweight in Mercedes' success next season. That's the honest truth. I just don't know if I can. My shoulders aren't broad enough to get to do the blind faith thing, as so many cult LHers are so brilliant at doing. That's the honest truth. Not really a massacre, more like a maxacre. Lennart, exactly that. I've been watching a lot of Max postseason because I have a tendency, listen, when somebody's doing good things or incredible things, or things that I'm not used to seeing in terms of their greatness and the frequency of the heights that they're achieving, as has Max been doing for the past 2 seasons or more. I mean, bandwagon is a thing, right? Recency bias is absolutely a thing. Cognitive dissonance. There are many of them, and I suffer for them as much as the next boy or girl. So I've been watching a lot of Max's so-called highs, Monaco quali, went back and watched Suzuka quali, and listen, I think sometimes you've got to revise downwards, right? Check my facts. Dead wrong is a true thing. You can't always, you don't bat 1,000 in real time. Nobody does. Sometimes you got to go back and rewatch. Suzuka was ridiculous. Monaco quali, maybe a little less ridiculous than I initially put out there, but still ridiculous nonetheless. The dude is incredible, man. And I suppose what you want to take from this going forward is anybody that's going to beat Max Verstappen in 2024 needs to be on their game. They need to have eaten their Weetabix and had their Red Bull every single morning if you're going to try to beat that dude over the course of a 24 race season. I've said that before, and I will say it again. Only just now it appears like the masses are just now getting onto the Max Verstappen bandwagon. I'm hearing people say, oh yeah, he's a really good driver, when before it was just a car. Oh, he's a really good driver, that Max Verstappen. what happened to it just being a rocket ship? Now everybody started to realise only 3 bloody seasons later. But I digress. Let's talk about some business F1. There was a publication. Me and Baxty and Shez did a shakedown where I said something. I'm not gonna walk it back completely because I think I was onto something. There is a publication, table setting, an online publication called Business F1 that Bernie Ecclestone's got something to do with, and some other very shady characters also have something to do with. And they published an article. I would get screenshots of back here, but I'll describe it to you. It's probably better that way. They published an article about Susie Wolff and Toto Wolff, but by now you all be familiar with, and accused or said in that article that there is a team principal who has been warring and feuding with Toto Wolff. Mention no names, Christian Horner. They mentioned no names. Anonymous team principal who has accused Toto Wolff and Susie Wolff of by virtue of their relationship being in conflict of interest manifest. Now, conflict of interest is as a techie terminology, right? Of course, listen, if any employee of the FIA or the commercial rights holder is sharing knowledge with a team principal, then that's an unfair advantage, right? And that, of course, is that conflict of interest, or that information is born of a conflict of interest. This is massive speculation, by the way, but if that's happening, I said it on the shakedown and I will reiterate it. If that's happening, then the FIA need to investigate it. However, you need evidence to trigger off a public announcement of an investigation. Evidence more than Business F1 as a publication. Because, let me talk to the publication very quickly. And again, listen, context, table setting, these two things in conflict of interest and this publication being very, very dodgy and untrustworthy, those two things aren't mutually exclusive. They can exist in the same space because they do. Business F1 is a very, very dodgy publication. You guys can go and check my maths on this. There are loads of publications or articles even that they've released and put forth in very recent history where they're talking all sorts of dodgy misogyny things. There's a headline that springs to mind where they talk about the view from the paddock is much better than it used to be. And the picture that they've got on there is a picture of a very attractive young lady. Well, you can't publish articles like that and expect people to take you seriously and not question the levels of misogyny that the people are holding the pen over at that publication, the Business F1 online publication, have baked in, right? That is misogyny. We don't need to argue about that. And there are more than that. The FIA Academy was accused of not leveraging the sexiness of the drivers. They even accused the drivers of not being sexy enough. What is that, Pet? Like, we can't do that. Rapid Go, what's going on? We can't, like, in 2023, we don't even need to have a conversation as to how or whether that's sexism / misogyny. Absolutely. So we know, take this to the bank then, that the people who are responsible for the articles that come out in Business F1 as a publication aren't the most upstanding and integrity filled as journalists. We have proof of that. Even my guy, Mr. Matt Bishop, ex-CIO, Chief Information Officer of Aston Martin, they took his word and put it in their publication as if he told them that. They quoted Matt Bishop as if it was an article. You don't quote him, but you didn't interview him. Business F1 is dodgy. You can take that to the bank. And then they have accused Susie Wolff of all sorts of conflicts of interest, and Toto Wolff saying, and again, quoting an anonymous source who blatantly was Christian Horner, but I digress. They didn't say that in the article. Quoting an anonymous team principal who has been in long-term beef with Toto Wolff, saying something to the effect of there is a conflict of interest because Toto and Susie are a couple and they work for different fragments of F1 and therein lies your conflict. That's techie. It's techie. You need to add, if you're going to be a responsible journalist, you need to evidence that with more than just anonymous sources. Now, do I doubt for a second, because of Christian Horner's subsequent interview with Sky Sports saying, and I quote, that we have not put in an official complaint. Do I doubt for a second that somebody somewhere said something to that effect? 100% not. Absolutely. Christian Horner, it sounds like something that Christian Horner would say. Speculation, allegedly. Of course it does. Is conflict of interest the real thing? Of course. Is there misogyny still up and down the grid in F1 in 2023? Of course there is. Can this article tick all three of those boxes in one foul swoop? Of course it can. And that's not to say that Susie Wolff absolutely wasn't the victim of misogyny. The way that article was written, again, steeped in misogyny. When you read it back, and I have read it back a couple of times, they were looking to get at Susie. I didn't see them explicitly questioning her competence per se, but was the writer of that article, the holder of that pen. Could you accuse them of writing the article through the lens of misogyny? Absolutely. And plus, and again, I don't like to take things in isolation, right? When you look at the history of Business F1 as a publication, I mean, as far as misogyny and isms, they're serial killers, right? You can go and check the maths. Bernie Ecclestone there is an affinity between the originator of this publication and Bernie Ecclestone. And let's not forget that Bernie Ecclestone has always had a very good relationship with Christian Horner. Massive speculation, but there you go, put it out there. Conclusion from all of this Business F1 stuff. Can two things exist concurrently in the same space? Does everything need to be mutually exclusive? Absolutely not. I say that to say this. Business F1, the authors and originators, the custodians of that publication, do they have a history of penning misogynistic articles? 100%. But does that mean that the quotes that they cited in that article were fugazi, that they weren't on the money? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. So I don't want to say that they are a misogynistic publication, or have been at least historically, or at least have written articles that speak vehemently, materially to misogynistic undertones. Does that mean that the article was 1,000% off the money? I don't think so. Techie, eh? Techie. Just because somebody's misogynistic / racism, sometimes even a broken clock gets it right twice a day, so I'm told. There you go, Business F1. Sloper, I think you need to look up what is a conflict of interest camp. No wrongdoing is required. As for misogyny, so Sloper, I've got my legal cap on. You've got to evidence it. You are right, Sloper. Conflict of interest can happen in a vacuum, right? But if you're prosecuting it, then you've got to evidence it. So we can do the saloon semantic slope. You are right. I can't argue against what you said, but you got to evidence, especially through the FIA. You can't just read it. That article can't be the only evidence that you have for coming out publicly and saying that you're going to investigate it. That's not proper process. That's not the level of process that you would expect from the governing body of a $1 billion entity per Formula One. Surely, Sloper. I don't know. As for the misogyny argument, people look for opportunities to be offended way too much nowadays. Sloper, I don't disagree with that. You know, I'll be honest with you, and like the civil rights mafia will come for me for saying that. But again, Sloper, that's not to say, bruv, that this publication is a serial killer when it comes to that type of stuff. I wish that, you know what, next time I'll bring up the screenshot. The view from the paddock is much improved with a picture of a very good looking Sloper. That's not acceptable, man. It's not acceptable. Lennart, go on then, let's talk about, the article and the publication are a bit dodgy, Sloper. Go on, and let's talk about Michael because. Let me. All right, table setting. Me and Michael always had a very. Okay, in 1994, I was a Damon Hill fan. So on the back of what happened in Adelaide, I wasn't overly enamoured with Michael. But you've got to, at this stage in 2023, give Michael Schumacher the driver props, because what Lewis and Max, to a lesser extent, probably are doing in 2023 for F1 in the 90s and the early 2000s. Michael Schumacher was that guy for Formula One. He was the guy to take F1 from the nuanced back alleys of geekdom to the mainstream, right? He was what Drive to Survive is doing in 2020. He was doing that in the 1990s. Michael Schumacher was a different level of dominance in F1 than what we've ever seen before, right? Fangio back in the day, 1953 to 57, of course, but not many of us were around to see that in person, right? So the level of dominance that we saw Michael Schumacher effect on the rest of the pack from 1994, 95, 2000 through 2004 was absolutely unprecedented. How did he do it? He had a completely different approach. And let's not, something's not lost on me here. Let me talk about Michael Schumacher's reign as champion, Reaganmeister, because I want to put some respect to it. And the reason why I'm talking about this, by the way, 10 years to the day yesterday, 29th of December, 10 years to the day he had his accident, right? And we'll talk about it now. I'll talk about his condition and I promise. The origin story of the Reaganmeister, and again, the reason why I'm talking to this today is because every man on their dog's just talking about Abu Dhabi 21. There is recency bias across the board, and I think that the story of Michael Schumacher is lost on newer, younger TikTok fans, Drive to Survive fans of F1, right? Of which 25% are. I think that's sad, and that's why I need to give Schumacher, Michael Schumacher, the Reaganmeister, the original Red Baron. I need to talk to him for a good 15-20 minutes here. Apologies if I go over, but I think it's worth it. The origin story of Michael Schumacher, let's remember, first championship in 1994, went head-to-head with Senna before then. Again, not too much success, but there's a very famous picture that you guys can go and Google where Michael Schumacher is talking directly to Senna. You can see in his demeanour that everybody at that time, minus a Nigel Mansell, minus an Alain Prost, all the other buds on the grid were afraid of the enigma that was Ayrton Senna. But this young upstart called Michael Schumacher, the original Reaganmeister, absolutely was not. Hero worship Senna, he did. Then again, you can go on to 1994. You'll all seen the press conference, the very first one after Senna's passing at Imola, San Marino at the time. You can see Michael sheds tears. He says, Michael Schumacher does, that at this stage of the championship, Senna would have been driving rings around all of us. Magnanimity. And it's a side of Michael that the media don't often show. You've got to go away and investigate to get access to this. Let me retrace my steps and set the scene. Michael Schumacher, the origin of Michael Schumacher's success, 1994, the year that Senna passed, where he very narrowly beat Damon Hill. And again, he reached into his bag, didn't he, to get that championship. He was the better man across the entirety of the season. And that's said as a Damon Hill fan. Of course he was, but in the final race, it got very controversial. And Michael Schumacher ultimately did what needed to be done. As controversial, as line steppery as that is, that was the DNA of Michael Schumacher. And again, we'd see that later in 1997 at Jerez with the infamous incident now with Jacques Villeneuve. That was always Michael, though. And you can't separate that line stepper Michael from the successful Reaganmeister, Red Baron dominance that was Michael Schumacher. You can't pass the two because they are the same entity. Michael Schumacher wins in 94 and then goes on to repeat in 95. Had he stayed at Benetton in 96, across the board, people say he would have won again in 96 and potentially in 97. But Michael Schumacher didn't do that because that's not his DNA. His DNA was to go and seek challenge, to prove himself, to build a team at Scuderia Ferrari that nobody said could even be rebuilt. It'd been God knows how many years since Ferrari had won a championship in 1994, 95. Let me think when back. It's Prost, isn't it? Prost didn't win with Ferrari. What are you on about, Cameron? It's a while ago. A gazillion years. Everybody said Scuderia Ferrari couldn't come back. Schumacher said, you know what? Hold my beer. I call your bluff on that. Went over to Scuderia Ferrari and built a team around him. And let's not forget, it wasn't an instant success. This didn't happen overnight. Schumacher was there from 97, 96, 94, 95 Benetton, 96 he was at Ferrari. He didn't win a championship until 2000, remember. This was a long-term project. It didn't happen overnight, but Michael Schumacher put the hours in. He stayed late. He tested 24/7. All the hours that God could send, Michael Schumacher was in that car testing, building a team around him. Those engineers at Ferrari loved him because Michael Schumacher, champion, two-time at the time, was prepared to go over and above. That was his strength, his USP per se, and they loved him for he spoke Italian. His wife followed him everywhere, Karina. And again, if you watch the Schumacher documentary on Netflix, you will see this. I don't know how, even if you weren't a fan of Schumacher before, you watch that documentary and you see how family-oriented Michael was, how focused he was on his son and his daughter, on his brother and his father, on his wife, how focused he was, how determined Michael Schumacher was to return Scuderia Ferrari to the top step. You can't. Yeah. How can you not have love in your heart as a racing fan for that dude? You can't. This said as a Damon Hill fan, by the way. And of course, in 2000, after 4 years of rancor, of barking at the wrong tree, of testing, of having dogs of a Ferrari car that just weren't capable of challenging, apart from a 1997 Jerez, by the way. Ultimately, though, I say that all that to say he wasn't getting it done. They weren't getting it done. And then in 2000, after years of reinventing the wheel, after years of trying hard, going over and above, Michael Schumacher returns Scuderia Ferrari to the top step of the Drivers' Championship. He did it. He did it. How did he do it? I hear you say, by commitment, by drive, by completely reinventing all of the, or reimagining what drivers hitherto had thought as the line of least resistance as far as health and optimizing for your physical health. Michael Schumacher was in the gym every day. None of them those other drivers were at the pub at the time. Mansell and co. Are you joking? They were down the pub. They would test, and then Mansell would test and go down there. Go and get 18 rounds in. Not Michael Schumacher, though. And I think we need to give that chap credit for the way that the approach, when you see Gasly on the grid doing all the bloody ball catching and taking it very, very seriously. When you see somebody like Alex Albon or Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton ripped to shreds, all that doesn't happen before Michael Schumacher. That happens because of Michael Schumacher's approach. And as F1 fans all around the world, I don't want to do the low-hanging recency bias trope and just say, wow, these are the fittest, healthiest, strongest batch of drivers that we've ever seen. Yeah, that's true, but why? What's that a function of? Michael Schumacher is what that's a function of. And I think he's absolutely worthy of credit as a still record holder with Sir Lewis, Carl, Davidson, Hamilton, by the way. We've got to give him praise for that, right? You don't just win 7 titles with 2 different teams, by the way. You just don't do that. You've got to be made of some serious stuff. And Michael Schumacher was that. You know, I'll never forget a story I think his wife told on the Netflix documentary where she was talking about how important sleep was to him. He knew that if he didn't sleep well, so serious was he about his approach? Everything outside of the cockpit, he understood that all that stuff fed into him being able to get the best out of that car. He knew it. He was acutely aware, so acutely aware that sometimes he didn't even sleep in the same bed as his wife. Didn't want to be disturbed. GOAT levels of commitment. I can't hate that cryptic. Brazil Marinas. Yeah, I can't. Oh yeah, Gilles de Ferrari, R.I.P. Man. I will get to that shortly, I promise. But I want to nail this Michael Schumacher thing because I'm missing a couple of bits. So fearlessly zoned in and focused was Michael on everything that was F1. He would be the first one to arrive at testing, the last one to leave. He would go to dinner with the engineers, performance racing included. He wouldn't even sleep in the same bed as his wife, yet his wife would travel all around the world following the F1 circus just to support him. This guy was at levels of you want to talk about levels of commitment? This dude was on a different level. Absolutely, probably levels of commitment that we haven't seen since maybe Sebastian Vettel was there for a time. I don't want to argue Verstappen, man. I wouldn't argue gun to the head that any one of these current day drivers have shown, reached, surpassed even the levels of commitment that the Reagan Meister Red Baron Michael Schumacher plied his trade using. Was a legend. Hence why, and I say all that with a heavy heart, man, because ultimately, 10 years ago yesterday, Michael Schumacher was involved in a tragic skiing accident, went off piste to try and help somebody that was in trouble, and had a massive life-changing incident. Fell, hit his head, hit a rock, and then hit his head on another rock. And again, ever since, we've gotten limited news about Michael's health and well-being. I think here's what we can assume about Michael. I think he is, and I don't even want to speculate. It feels like in poor taste, right? Here's what I will say. Michael Schumacher being Michael Schumacher, if he could walk and talk, we would see him at Grand Prix today, especially with Mick, his son, having been in that Formula last year. Michael would have been there, man. So I think here's what you can assume. I don't think Jean Todt, I use Jean Todt's words, Michael is here still, but he's not the same Michael. You can assume that Michael is in a vegetative state. He's not in a coma any longer, but Jean Todt alluded to this. He can't sit up unassisted. That's where Michael is. That's the state of his health. And shout out to Jean Todt, by the way, for going and spending time with Michael Schumacher, watching races at his side, even though ostensibly, by all accounts, he's in a vegetative state, because that takes some. That's not easy. That's not easy, and he's to be commended for taking the time out and spending time with his great friend Michael Schumacher, the man with whom he won 5 championships back to back, 2000 to 2004. By the way, I rate Sean Dodd for that. And it saddens me. I talk about all this with a very, very heavy heart, because Michael was one of the greats, man. And listen, if anything lets you realise something about mortality, and that the time that I don't want to get on my high horse and start bloody Anthony Robbins in it, but if anything makes you realise how precious a resource our time on this earth is, then Michael Schumacher, the Reagan Meister, Red Baron settings, he was invincible from circa 95 all the way through to 2004, ruled F1 for a decade. I mean, what could make you more acutely aware of your vulnerabilities as a human being than Michael Schumacher having that accident and being in a vegetative state ever since that day for the past 10 years. And I don't want to talk too much. Again, you guys, I talk about it because I can see some of you guys in the chat, Lennart, are keen to get an update. But you got to tread carefully with these issues, right? Because I understand that the family are keen. The family don't want the world's press to see the great man in that state. That's their excuse me, that's their wish as a family. And I'm not going to be the one to. And by the way, just shows you how scumbaggy some of the media are in. That loads of people are trying. When you read about the tricks and the skullduggery that people have used to try and get pictures of Michael. One of the world's media dressed up as a bloody priest to try and get into the hospital. Like, what is that about? Knowing full well that you could try and say, got pictures and tried to sell them for €50,000. Like, what are we doing? If anything could make you lose faith in humanity, is that. By the way, they caught that dude and he imprisoned him, and he took the ultimate sacrifice, didn't he? It's chaos. And that saddens me again, man. Like, makes you lose faith in humanity, that sort of stuff. But again, they don't know. Cash rules everything around me, cream, get the money, dollar bills. That is the bottom line. Driver Gilles de Ferrari passed away. Yeah, absolutely. Brazil Marines. I didn't know a lot about Gilles, but the people that I'm close to who are connected said he was a really, really good guy. And again, it happened super suddenly, didn't it? It's as always happens around this time of the year, we lose some of the good ones, don't we? Always happens. And again, I think as we go into 2024, I more than ever am acutely aware of my mortality, acutely aware of that time, every single second is a finite resource. Again, not to get on my Anthony Robbins unicycle, but I don't know, man. And that makes me feel super appreciative and grateful for each and every single one of you guys that come here to talk F1 and argue and correct me when I talk rubbish. Yeah, you guys are absolute legends. Cryptic. I used to hate Michael, but for me, he's the GOAT. British media made everyone hate him using the England and Germany rivalry. He didn't need the best car to fight for titles. Cryptic, you've said it infinitely better than I ever could. Michael was very, very good. Listen, you can just go a line stepper, yes, at times, but I almost think I'll go for another 10 minutes, guys. I almost think that the way that I saw the line stepping in real time, it made me really dislike. Cryptic, similar to you, made me really dislike Michael Schumacher. But the more F1 that you watch, I think the more that you come to realise that line stepping is a function of an unrivaled will to win, right? And you know what, Verstappen, parlaying that into present day, when you see Verstappen's aggressive moves, Verstappen has, I was arguing back and forth with Shez and Baxty the other day offline in our cheeky chat group. I see a lot of that in Verstappen. Verstappen has that same, you know how Verstappen has the same DNA that Michael Schumacher does. In the off season, there is, I wanted to dissect this in a video, but I haven't bloody had time. Spending too much time with the family, trying to be a husband and a father for once in my life. There is a piece of footage that's come out. I think Max Verstappen flew to Brazil in the off season over the festive period, so he could spend some time with Kelly and Nelson Senior. And they all went to the karting track, didn't they? In Brazil. Of course they did. Why wouldn't you? Max decided that he was going to start from the back. By the end of lap one, he was in. And again, this is just a friendly karting session, right? Max Verstappen doesn't know the definition of friendly karting session. He wants to win everything. And that's, I say all that to say this. In fact, when you watch it back, you'll see at the very start, obviously starting from the back, he's got to make up places early, hasn't he? He nearly takes out the person. Like, he kind of goes off track a little bit, and the person that's waving the green flag, Max Verstappen nearly takes their bloody legs out. Friendly karting session. Max Verstappen knows nothing of the sort. So say all that to say that Max Verstappen has some of whatever Michael Schumacher had. That win at all costs mentality. Listen, I think there's something to be said for that. I used to hate it, like the line stepping, and listen, in my old age, I can't help but respect it. And again, you will see the likes of a Schumacher, Verstappen, they will line step, but that's born of an unerring, unrivaled, almost unprecedented, once in a generation will to win. That's the why. And you guys know that me and Cameron F1, I'm almost as invested in the whys and the hows as the whats. I know 99% of analysts are all about this happened and this is Max Verstappen won the jet. The whats, right? The headlines. I've always been overweight, more invested in the hows and the whys. And that's why I won't chastise. I didn't used to like Michael Schumacher, particularly in 1994. But when you understand the why, the mechanics driving a 7-time champion like a Michael Schumacher, it slots into the place very neatly, like a jigsaw puzzle. It does. Leonard says he isn't the GOAT for me. Too unsportsmanlike and crash others out for 2 championship. That's why he does, in my opinion, have 6 championship. I do agree on the family comment still. Yeah, Leonard. I hear you, Leonard. I hear you. And I was right there with you back in 94, but I feel like something, especially when you watch back the old footage, the way he just smash out qualifying lap after qualifying lap in the race, and very, very, very rarely would he make mistakes. I don't know. I have over the past, since the accident and since I've watched more and more of Mike, and again, I lived through the Michael Schumacher era, right? But I was young and fickle. I was a Drive to Survive fan back in like the early 90s. I didn't know what I was looking at, but going back and revisiting some of the exploits of Michael Schumacher, you kind of I at least have a kind of newfound, crystallized respect for the chap. Sylvia Gallo, what's going on? I hope you're good. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Silver. I hope you and yours have had a good one. I hope all of you and yours have had a good one. There was something else I was going to talk about here. All right, let's talk about Mercedes very quickly. For 3 minutes or less, 2024 promises to be a good season. But again, I'm reserving judgment, let's say. Because this time last year, every man and their dog who had a penny or more invested in Mercedes, or even invested in a competitive season, thought that Mercedes were going to come with a rocket ship. This was going to be the year, they said. And how did that work out? No, zero rational mindedness at play. Zero prospect or endeavour to reserve judgment. It was like Mercedes is going to do it. Lewis is going to win his 8th. And as much as I'd love to see that, I deal in facts. Objective truth is what I've always pinned my tail to. I really, really hope that the likes of James Allison and Toto, all the stuff that they're talking, I'm hearing that they've found, or Ferrari at least have found that the calipers of the Red Bull are meant to be a bit lighter. And again, I remember, I want to say about 16 months ago, there was a lot of talk about that Red Bull car and how much pace there was it was a heavy car. All of the cars were heavy initially on the back of the new rules and regs. Then Red Bull had taken a step in making that car much lighter than the rest of them on the field. So I think there is, if you're doing SWOT analysis, there's absolutely upside for the rest of the teams on the grid, not named Red Bull, in making their cars lighter. It's one of the quickest ways to gain a 10th or 2, indeed, to make your car lighter. Silver, me and you both. Honestly, I can't jump on the copium bandwagon again. As much as I'd love to see Lewis Hamilton smash that 8th next year, show me something first, you know. Mercedes are on class is permanent, they say, form is temporary. That's true to an extent, particularly in F1. After how many seasons in the doldrums does form over type, class, or historic accolades? Another couple of seasons like this from Mercedes, and are we still going to be referencing 8-time Constructors Champions? I don't know. There is a line that draweth between the two, right? After a while, form can overtype class and historic accolades, and that's my concern with Mercedes. They're clearly going through a transition period, very similar to what what Man United are going through and have struggled with since the departing of Alex Ferguson as manager. And listen, all dynasties go through these. I mean, the Lakers back in like the early, like if you look across sports, all dynasties will go through something of a transition period because nothing ever lasts forever. It will always be, the trend is your friend until there's a bend. There will always be variables. The killer question is, can Mercedes turn around? Here's the killer question, and I'll try and word this as succinctly and eloquently as possible. Here's the question, in my humble opinion. Mercedes have lost themselves 48 months, in my humble opinion. Not only the 24 months of their development, but the 24 months that the other teams have been developing sound design philosophies and concepts, right? So in total, if F1 is if the battle for dominance in F1 is relative, because ultimately you're just trying to be the fastest, you're just trying to beat the second fastest team on the grid, right? That's all that winning in F1 is all about. So if the battle for dominance and to advance a design philosophy is rooted in relativity, then can Mercedes overcome a 48-month head start that they've given in terms of their design philosophy to the other 9 teams on the grid? That's the key question, because people are saying, I've heard people talk about, well, they've given them 12. It's not 12 months, nor is it 24 months. 24 months Mercedes, and then 24 months the other team, the total of which is 48 months. That, peddlers, is a lot to overcome. Huge. So Lennart's saying it's not a driver's fault, it's the rules. Yeah, a driver that drives the respect. You know what, Lennart, you're going back to the point now. But I hear you with the respect. I'll touch on that in a second. I just want to make this Mercedes point because it's important. 48 months is a lot. If I were a betting man, and I'm not saying that Mercedes will never come back, but if it's a question of when and not if, you've got to say after 2026, right, and the new regs. To say 2024, to overcome, it'd be one of the greatest sporting comebacks that we've ever seen in any sport, let alone F1. To overcome 48 months worth of design philosophy travel. What? Unheard of stuff. That would be like akin to Braun just rocking up and just nailing it via the double diffuser. Like, do you know what I mean? It would be miracles. So with that fact sheet front and center of my mind, I'm not expecting. Listen, they'll get better relatively. They will get better. They've been running this 0 pod iteration for 24 months now. Of course, now that there's a paradigm shift in their design philosophy, I absolutely expect them to kick on. But the gap between Red Bull and the rest, I don't think we saw the true gap last year. From Max Verstappen can start like 9th or wherever in Miami and then run first easily with time in hand. I don't think Red Bull, very rarely, if at all, did Red Bull dial that RB19 up to 12 last year, which scares me. If they've still got time in hand, then, do you know what I mean? And they're going to design and that they're bloody kicking on with RB20. They've already said that they're expecting tenths to be tenths quicker than RB19, and RB19 wasn't slow then. I don't know. Good luck beating Max Verstappen in that RB20 next year. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for challenge at the very least, eh? That's why I'm hopeful for. What's Lennart saying? Lennart, it's not the driver's fault, it's the rules. Don't hate the player, hate the game, Lennart. I'm telling you. The rules have been... I hate the rules, but I'm more hateful of the institution, the application of those rules by the governing body. They've just been consistently inconsistent since before 2021, even like 2020 at the very later. Like, it's just been rubbish. Rubbish, and you get Mohammed Bala. Listen, if you ever had faith in the FIA's ability to govern, this latest debacle and how quickly they came out and said, we're going to investigate this conflict of interest. Why? Why the need for a public statement? The FIA at this stage in December of 2023 are more concerned with PR than doing their job. You are there to safeguard F1 and ensure balanced competition. You're not there to manage PR. Nonsense. It's honestly, it's ridiculous. But you know what? More fool me for being surprised, right? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Shame on me. And again, shame on me for ever having faith in the FIA. They're chaotic. And that's to your point, Leonard. A driver that drives with respect. But again, I still hate the game more than I hate the player, if I'm honest. Both are to have some sort of culpability, some level of culpability. But you know what? Ultimately, the buck stopped with the FIA for letting whoever you're alluding to, Lennart, get away with it. Cryptic, Mercedes need an engine advantage to do anything. Oh my God, the last time the engines were equal, 2010 and 13, Merc were exactly the same. A few good tracks, but not challenging. You know what, Cryptic? Excuse me. Sorry. My sneeze is crazy, isn't it? Oh, man. Cryptic, it's chaos. You guys know that I've always been driver for Bert. What's going on? Legend of the channel. I hope you're good, Bert, and hope you and yours are having a fantastic festive period. Here's what I will say. As a person that loves I've been a self-confessed part-time casual, part-time die-hard, right? In that I love competition. I get up for competition in any sport, F1 in particular, for first, second and third. First in particular. So here's where I am with that statement, Cryptic. I think, oh my gosh, do not clip me on this, but I'm gonna tell you guys as my parting shot. Here's where I am with this. Max Verstappen in that Red Bull, that Adrian Red Bull, I'm not sure. And we're not just talking about pace on track, are we? We're talking about operationally, pit stops they rarely miss. Hannah Schmidt is an absolute demon in terms of strategy and their ability to think of. They're best in class pretty much across the board. So here's my point. If you're Lewis Hamilton or Charles Leclerc and you harbour aspirations of challenging Max Verstappen in that Red Bull for the Drivers' Championship in 2024, you're going to need stuff. You're going to need stuff. To have a car as quick, and this is me hypothesizing and doing the saloon semantics thing, but you're going to need more than the equal of that Adrian Red Bull to beat Max Verstappen in that car. You're just going to need stuff. Because their pit stops, they never, like, I can only remember one mistake as far as operationally that they made in 2023. Very, very rarely a case they screwed up Singapore and Max Verstappen had a dodgy qualifying. It was Singapore, wasn't it? They very rarely make mistakes. So over the course of a 24 race season, I think you're going to need advantage. Me and Shez did a calculation, the legend. He went back and looked at 2021 because we were arguing back and forth who had the quickest car between Max Verstappen's Red Bull and Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes. This has been the source of much conflict, and I just wanted to evidence base it, right? Go back and look at the super times, the quickest lap that was made over the course of each single race weekend, and tell me who it was and tell me how far the Red Bull or the Mercedes was behind that. And Shez did the calc, and Mercedes had the quicker car on balance. It wasn't by much, 0.0 something of a percent. It wasn't a lot. Wasn't a lot, but Mercedes had the quicker car in 2021. That's just the truth. I think you're going to need stuff. If anybody's looking to nail it next year, not name Max Verstappen, you're going to need a car quicker than that Red Bull because they're just so strong in every other bloody department, operationally, strategically. They just don't make mistakes. They're a proper thoroughbred race team, that Red Bull operation. So I don't know. Just barely, Cryptic. I've got you know what? I'll post it on Twitter with Shez's permission, but Shez went away and did the bloody calculations. It's like point something of a percent quicker in terms of super times. It wasn't much, but it was. And that Shez, with his clinical mind, went away and did that calc, because we were arguing back and forth about. I've argued with Nash Quick Stop F1 actually a number of times about this. Nash will argue, well, listen, sometimes stats don't tell the whole story, and he watched in real time and he thinks that Red Bull had the quicker car. They had the quicker machinery more of the time. Stats say different. I hear what Nash is saying, to be fair, but the stats tell us different. Cryptic, yeah, Mert was, my God, what's going on? Happy New Year, sir. I hope you're well, man. I hope you guys are well. I'm going to end it there. Something else I wanted to say, apologies for the lack of content on the Mothership channel. Something's going to happen with that in the new year, I promise you. It's got lots of stories to tell. I just need to I need to revise my workflow. Let's say I'm back at work now. I'm not doing it full time anymore. Bills to pay and mortgages. And kids don't feed themselves, apparently. So back at work, I need to have a think about my workflow and start getting some videos out. It may not be on that channel. Stay tuned. I will announce more in the new year. I'm feeling like I can talk to you guys. I feel like the algorithm is a very fickle thing in 2024, 23, nearly 24. And I think I need to put a channel out there that's optimized to go purple on the YouTube, on the track that is the YouTube algorithm, let's say. But I've been saying that I'm going to do that for the longest time. I will do that, honestly. In the first couple of the weeks of the new year, I will set up a Discord so we can all continue to have these wholesome modes of discourse around everything F1, because it's going to kick off big time in the lead up to testing, isn't it? It is going to be an absolute madness. Slope out, I will do it. The Discord is coming, I promise you. Anyway, guys and girls, I'm going to run away. Joseph Powell, sorry, I missed so many comments. Meant to be a live chat. Don't think it can be done before the new regs. You just can't use money to fix all issues. Absolutely nailed it, Joseph. I've missed a bit of that. Oh no, you just can't. There you go. I forgot that very key part of my discourse. It's a cost cap era per Joseph. You can't. No longer can Mercedes throw 400 million at a problem to catch back that 48 months worth of perceived design philosophy advantage that the rest of them have. Chaos, even in 21, aero tweak and Mercedes went from dominant 2020 to under pressure in 2021. It took the engine. You know what I say to that? Finally, Cryptic, and I'm going to run away because I've gone long. I said 30 minutes and I've gone more than. What a joker. Poor timekeeping from Cameron. I blame you guys for keeping me. I just love to talk F1, don't I? I watched something the other day that was talking about, so the Mercedes package, the prime, so like the W11 was, its strength absolutely was its engine. And as far as the built-in aero efficiency, most of it came from bits that they tacked on. Like, so fundamentally, the W11 wasn't an RB19 as far as how aerodynamically efficient the package was fundamentally. Adrian Newey tends to build his packages fundamentally aerodynamically efficient. It's built in to the design. Whereas Mercedes, all of their downforce were these like frilly bits, right? The bloody the edgy bits by the front wing. There were all these like, do you know what I mean? Like accessories, aerodynamic accessories, for want of a better way of wording it. That's what Mercedes leveraged. Whereas Red Bull, even in 2020 and 2021, they cut that high rake that they use. It was like, I say all that to say this, they were in a far better position to take advantage of the rule and reg change, the ground effect era, because their car was already leaning towards that sort of the design philosophy that would thrive in the new rules and regs. Whereas Mercedes, this is the reason why they've struggled, right? Because it's a new type of design. The ground effect, no barge boards, reduces your ability to leverage all of these tacked on bits and increases the emphasis on a fundamental aerodynamic efficiency. And that's why Red Bull are bloody 300 miles down the road, isn't it? Excessive. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna bring back the old background. Amjad, you guys let me know quickly before I run away. Number one, if you like the new background. Number two, if bring back the old background. This is in fact, you know what? Let's I'll get a, let me know in the chat, and then I'll get a cheeky bring back the old background. Said, oh no, I thought this background was the thing. I'll tell you the truth, Amjad. But you guys let me know. Number one, for I can't remember which way around I've got it. Let me just put a poll out there before I new background or old. I can't remember which way around I said it, but because I'm a numpty. Here we go. You guys let me know. New background or old. Get your votes in now. Macon, you're a fan. But it looks like you're a fan of the old one. We should have at least... Oh, no, I agree with you, Slow Pat, with the light. Smash the like before I run away. Cryptic, both cool. Oh, 50%. Get your votes in. Peddlers. This is going to be definitive. A defining poll. Get your vote in, Amjad, if you prefer the old one. Cryptic, you like the new. Let's go. 57%. I really like the new one, but you know what? I am at your behest. To be honest, something quite cryptic. TMG, something quite cryptic about the new one, eh? But you guys let me know. Joseph, the new one seems pretty relaxing. Yeah, that's what I'm going for. I want to be nuanced and I want to be sophisticated in my background. 9 of you voted. Right, guys, I'm going to run away. Cast your votes. Honestly, I voted new. I like the change. There we go, Macon. Let's go. It's a close poll. Cast your votes. I'll leave it up there. I'm going to run away and be a bit of a part-time father and husband for a couple of minutes before 2024 is the year that we usher in. You guys are absolute legends. I hope you enjoyed that. I just wanted to come on and talk about Michael Schumacher because I felt like I don't talk about Michael enough. And I don't know, I feel like these important topics sometimes get lost in the roundings and it's all very Abu Dhabi 21 and Drive to Survive and Max Verstappen and yada, yada, yada. No, I appreciate you, Amjad. Menace, everybody's coming on late. What's going on, Menace? Yeah, so I felt 10 years after Michael's incident, 10 years yesterday, I thought it was as good a time as any to come on and, you know, talk about any of you guys that are coming on this. And I did a 20-25 minute chat about what Michael Schumacher means to me in December of 2023, because I think like it's, yeah, I feel like it's quite, it's important. It's important that we speak to this sort of stuff as F1 fans, especially when you bear in mind what's happened, right? The accident and hashtag keep fighting, Michael. You guys have been absolute legends. Thank you so much, Amjad, Menace, Quick, Scott, Burt, Sylvia, if you're still there, Macon, you guys are absolute legends. And I'm grateful, genuinely, I'll never stop saying this, ad infinitum to each and every single one of you that come on and watch the videos and join in with the lives. It's going to get techie next year, I promise you. Lots of sick videos coming out. Where they'll be pointed, I will let you know at some point. Stay tuned on the community tab. I'm going to start writing some more on there. Guys are absolute legends. Thank you so much for the support. Happy New Year. I hope you and yours had a fantastic festive period, whatever you were celebrating. Hug somebody that you love as always. And remember, Happy New Year, but to look and never stare. Peace.